What's up guys, it's Jim Placebo here with another Dark Souls 2 cosplay video. Now this video is a request that my friend Ash gave me, so thanks for the request Ash, doing this was a lot of fun. And she requested that I do a build of Maka Albarn from the anime and manga series Soul Eater. Now, I will be completely honest, I know nothing about Soul Eater. I haven't watched or read any of it, so I was kind of in the dark going into this, but I was just able to go to the wiki and read about the character and her powers and abilities, and then do something based off that. And I looked at a lot of artwork, which is how I got started. So let's just start off by jumping into stats and info. You can see my info and stats here. I started with Deprived because I decided after reading about the character that I would go with a Hexer build for this cosplay. So here's a better look at my stats, how everything looks. And it was interesting because I've never really played Hexer before in this game, so it was a lot of fun both to have the challenge of the cosplay and then the challenge of learning to play Hexer and how to properly allocate stats to play Hexer, so that was a lot of fun. You'll see here I'm using the Black Witch's staff because obviously, as most people in the Souls community know, it can cast any sorcery, miracle, or hex. So I figured for a build like this, where I'm just like learning the basics of playing Hexer, this would be something good to start with. And I adopted some hexes that I thought would be fitting with Maka's abilities. We have Scraps of Life, I've just used Sacred Oath, I have the Great Heal, Dark Weapon, and the Great Magic Barrier. So I use these hexes because after reading about Maka's abilities and her weapons, I thought these hexes kind of fit. You can use the Dark Weapon to buff your Scythe. And I used two different Scythes in this build. The first one I used, and the one I used most, and probably preferred, was the Great Scythe. And then I infused it with Dark. Because this thing, it has the obvious downside of being a Scythe in the Dark Souls series, and Scythes, at least in 2, are notably not great. They have the same problem as halberds, where they have a sweet spot, so the blade, you have to actually hit with the blade, otherwise you do reduced damage. Other than that, it was still a lot of fun playing with this weapon. When you allocate your stats properly, and then infuse and buff it with Dark, you could hit for some really, really satisfying amounts of damage. But, it also has a pretty solid moveset with your overheads and your swipes. Not great for tight corners. It clangs off walls a lot, which is a problem it shares with halberds and ultra great swords. But the other Scythe I used was the Scythe of Want, which already is infused with dark, or already has a dark damage, and a very different, or well, not very different, but a different but still fun moveset. So you've got that, and then you can do that. So if you can hit with the first two, those will draw your enemies towards you, and then you do the follow-up with their heavy attack, and you can do some incredible damage. Now, I found I used the Great Scythe a lot more just because the Scythe of Want, it didn't feel as good. Maybe I just haven't learned how to use it as well, but using the Great Scythe just felt better. It felt like I was hitting harder, but both have visual similarities to the Scythe used by Maka in Soul Eater in the source material, so you can use either or you can alternate between both like I did. So that tides off weapons. Let's go ahead and get into armor. I didn't use a headpiece this time because Maka doesn't wear any kind of helmet or mask. At least not in the images that I saw. If she does, feel free to use whatever you think is the closest. I used the black robes because they were very, very closely identical, very close visually to Maka's robes in the source material. I used Pate's gloves because they were close visually, but unfortunately they're not very close in color aspect. They're close in visual, but not in... It's hard to explain. They look similar, but they don't have the right color. Maka's gloves are white. So if you want white gloves, you can use the white priest gloves. Unfortunately, they don't look very good. They don't really look like white gloves. They just look like ragged cloth gloves. So I stuck with Pate's gloves for most of it. And then Maka doesn't really wear... Well, she wears a skirt with her robe, and then black boots with white trim. So I'm wearing the Gyrm boots, because they're just, plain black boots. And then the short shorts of the Gyrm boots, when you wear that with the black robes, it masks them a lot better than most other pants. so it looks more like you have a skirt. Again, the color isn't right, and the closest thing I could find after that was Agdayne's Kilt, which has more of that skirt kilt look, and then with the sandals, it gives you more of that black on white look. So again, in that department, it's a matter of what you prefer. So that ties us off on weapons and armor, so I think we're ready to move into this build in combat.
Alright, so now I'm taking this Maka build up against the Executioner's Chariot, and I ran this boss a couple times because I wanted to be sure to show off all of the stuff about this build. I wanted to show off both scythes, and I wanted to show off the build both with and without the spell, the miracle buffs, and with and without the buffed Great Scythe. So you can see how this weapon, has a lot of ups and downs. I talked earlier about how if you hit, you have to hit in the sweet spots to do max damage, but also you can see here how walls are just your worst enemy with a weapon class like this. With wide open spaces like you get when you're fighting the boss itself, you do a lot better. Also, it's a lot easier to hit the boss for max damage because you don't have to worry as much about the sweet spot. But generally, scythes pose, and halberds, and ultra great swords, I mentioned that earlier too, pose a big challenge because with tight corridors, it becomes very hard to pull off a hit without clanging off the wall. That's why, it was good. It's good that this scythe has overheads and, side-to-side attacks. But the major problem that scythes have that halberds and ultra great swords don't is that scythes don't have a thrusting move. That would make scythes almost perfect if they had some sort of thrust. But I guess if they had a thrust, they'd just be halberds. But you can see how much damage that you can pull off when you play Hexer and then infuse and buff the Great Scythe with Dark. It can do some incredible amounts of damage. And that was what was most fun about this cosplay, was that not only was I doing the cosplay, I was learning a whole new playstyle while I did it. Usually with most of the cosplays I've done, it's a playstyle I've tried at least once, but I haven't really tried a Hexer playstyle before. I also haven't really tried Miracles, because Miracles they're not that great in this game. But it posed a unique challenge, because not only was I playing with the cosplay, but I was also playing with a unique set of playstyle rules playing as a Hexer. So that finishes off the boss battle. Get the soul in the ring, which is an amazing ring. God, I love the Chloranthy ring +2. But yeah, so as always, I'm always willing to take more requests from you guys. I already have a couple requests that one of my friends gave me. I'll link his YouTube channel in the description because he has an awesome YouTube channel where he plays stuff. But as always, if you want to see more, subscribe, like, and comment on the videos. And I'll see you guys next time.